Overton Bridge. The Overton Bridge is a Gothic style bridge overlooking a 50 feet ravine that leads up to Overton House, a 19th century manor in the Scottish lowlands. At the first glance, Overton Bridge looks pretty much like any other bridge from the time, but there is one pretty dark detail that makes it different from any other structure in the area. For the past 80 years, hundreds of dogs have been jumping off the bridge and down to the ravine to their deaths for seemingly no apparent reason. Sometimes the dogs survive the fall and are left with deliberate injuries, and according to some reports, there have been instances where dogs allegedly jumped off the bridge, survived, ran up to the slope, and then jumped off once again to their deaths. Depending on the source, you will find reports stating that the amount of dogs that have been jumped off the bridge is either lower than 100 or in the high hundreds. But regardless of the exact number, it's a fact that a lot of dogs have died at this bridge for some mysterious reason. As you can imagine, these incidents at Overton Bridge have fueled all kinds of outlandish theories, including suggestions that the bridge is haunted according to the Celtic pagan beliefs. The bridge is located at a thin place, which is a place that lies at the supposed union between heaven and earth. Some locals have also favored more supernatural theories, with many people blaming the dog's death on the White Lady of Overton, the alleged ghost of the widow from Overton House. Another popular theory among the locals is that the dogs are being affected by negative residual energy from a tragic event that took place in 1994, in which a 30-year-old father threw his baby off the bridge, claiming that his child was the Antichrist. Following the tragic murder, the father was declared insane and locked up in a psych ward. But even with all the more outlandish theories that have gained the traction in recent years, some researchers have come up with more plausible explanation for the mysterious incidents at Overton Bridge. In 2006, animal behaviorist David Sands investigated the bridge and suggested that the dogs are probably detecting the presence of wild animals below the bridge with their keen sense of smell, which makes them chase after the smell and inadvertently jumping to their deaths. This would make sense as according to official statistics in the area Minks.
Kola Superdeep Borehole in 1960s, the Soviet Union and the US were locked in a battle to develop superior space exploration technologies, often referred to as the space race. But what many people don't know is that the two countries were also competing to drill as close as possible to the center of the Earth. As is often the case, the motivation behind the drilling was mostly to find oil and valuable minerals. But from what I found, developing machines that can get close to the center of the earth would all help understand the causes of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. At a much deeper level, in 1958, the US government launched Project Mohel to collect a sample from Earth's mantle by drilling to the bottom of the ocean off Guadalupe Island in Mexico. Over the next 8 years, they drilled over 600 feet into the seabed, but in 1966, the House of Representatives had to discontinue the project because it was getting too expensive. 4 years later, in 1970, it was the Soviet Union's turn, and they drilled their hole close to the Barents Sea, just outside the Norwegian border, in a city known as Murmansk, Russia. At the time, the Soviets' goal was to drill as far down as possible, which researchers hoped would be a little over 9 miles. Unlike the US, the Soviets were a little more successful with their attempt and managed to drill the way deeper into the Earth crust, which resulted in the creation of Kola Superdeep Borehole, as also known as the world's deepest man-made hole, with a total depth of over 40,000 feet or around 7.5 miles. The Kola Super Deep Borehole is deeper than the Mar on a trench, and its depth surpasses the height of the Mount Everest. As the project progressed, the scientists realized the temperature was much higher than expected. At every point below 10,000 feet and at around 7.5 miles below the surface, the drill reported a temperature of almost 360 Fahrenheit. This was way higher than the 212 Fahrenheit the scientists had predicted at that depth. So even though the Soviets had to broken a record with the Kola borehole, they too had to discontinue the project. In 1992, due to the increasing rock densities and crazy high temperatures, and in 2005 the drill was shut down and hole was sealed for good. However, that wasn't the end of the story, and there's a slightly more disturbing reasons why people remember the Kola Super Deep Coal Bore is the late 80s. A strange story started circulating in several Christian Finnish newspapers, which reported that a group of Soviet scientists had drilled a hole to the center of the Earth and had allegedly lowered an extremely heat tolerant microphone into the hole. Through the they supposedly heard a series of extremely disturbing torment screams coming from the bottom of the well throughout the 90s. The story spread to other countries until even American newspapers were running it. As the story gained popularity, sound files with the supported audio of the tormented screams from the center of the earth started appearing everywhere online, with allegations that the screams came from tormented soul stuck in hell. As it was later revealed, the original recording of tormented screams was made from loop of various sounds effect and the soundtrack from the 1972 movie Baron Blood. From this point forward, it was pretty much common knowledge that screams were fake. However, it is a fact that some pretty disturbing sounds have been heard coming from the Kola Super Deep Borehole along with other super deep boreholes. In 2013, Dutch architect Lud G traveled to the 3,000 feet deep KTB Super Deep B hole in Germany, where she lowered a microphone protected by a thermal shield to see if she could pick up any sounds at the bottom of the well. Interestingly, a mysterious deep rumbling sound that scientists couldn't explain could be heard through the microphone, which in the artist's own words, some people thought sounded like hell, while others thought they could hear the planet breathe, even though the sound is pretty cool to hear, even if a little haunting. The consensus among scientists is that the sound comes from the layers and layers of rocks rearranging themselves after being moved around by the drill that made.